Well, with all the other talking this morning, I'm hoping to be brief with my messages. You've heard the good news again and again and again. We've heard it several times before the service even started. And then since the service has started, again and again in this message that Miss Folk just gave us. The good news is there as well, and it fits in with the reading for today. Last week, at the end of last week, I read an article on one of the news sites that I read called relevant.com. It's a Christian place. It's a place where Christian writers gather and they write certain pieces about what's going on in the world. And this particular article, which the link is on the back of my written sermon, but the article was about how what we need now is underdogs. We need to hear the underdog story right now. And the article started out talking about that movie that came out 40 years ago last week, Rocky. Yeah, 40 years ago, Rocky came out, and it was the ultimate story of the underdog, right? I mean, here is Rocky, the kid from the Philly streets who, he grew up in, he didn't have the advantages that other people had, but he worked hard and he trained on his own, and he used the city as his gym and his job at the meat factory to practice his punching, all that sort of stuff, and then he became this boxer. And it's a story of determination, it's a story of persistence, it's a story of this guy that won't give up and the spirit that he's got. He's the ultimate underdog. Like, everybody that he fights is supposed to beat him in the fights. And he wins it all because of the spirit that he has, refusing to ever give up. And if I may add into that, last week after reading this article and then watching the Eagles game on Sunday, and the Eagles are underdogs now with just about every single game they're going to be playing, I think. And an interesting thing about the game on Sunday, if you're following the team at all, you know that the receiving core is not the best. We don't have the best wide receivers right now. And so what they did, right? What they did was they brought up this guy from the practice squad, Paul Turner, right? Everybody wants Paul Turner to play. Why? Well, Paul Turner's not the biggest. He's not the strongest. He's not the fastest. He doesn't have the best skills. He's a practice squad player. When he came out of college, teams weren't lined up in order to sign him. Nobody really cared about him. He ended up on the practice squad. But Philadelphians love this kid, Paul Turner. I don't know him. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he's done in his life. All I know is that he doesn't look like he should, and he doesn't have the skills that people say he should. Yet, in preseason, when he was playing, he had the most receiving yards of any wide receiver that there was. He didn't look like a wide receiver, but he did really good. And then last week, what happens? They're losing. Well, let's throw the practice squad kid in there. They threw him in there, and he ends up being the best wide receiver that they had the entire game. He doesn't look like he should. He doesn't have the skills that he should. Yet the underdog has something that the others didn't. I think this is important because it's this message that we get again and again and again in the Bible. The Israelite people were not the biggest. They were not the strongest. They weren't the smartest. They weren't anything the greatest. But they had God on their side. Who was a bigger underdog than John the Baptist? Right? This crazy guy out in the wilderness eating bugs and raw honey. He didn't even dress in soft robes. I mean, look at Jesus' words here. He didn't have soft robes. What did you go out to see? What did you expect to see? Did you expect to see this great preacher? Did you go out expecting to see this wonderful thing happening? No, you went out to see a prophet. And this prophet was authentic to who he was as a Nazarene prophet. And he preached his message unabashedly to all of those in power. So much so that he ends up in prison, eventually beheaded, and his head served on a plate to the queen. Yeah. That's the type of underdog John the Baptist is. But of course he had God on his side, right? So the ultimate underdog that enters the picture. Jesus Christ, the baby king, this incarnate God born in flesh who had all power of the entire universe, who emptied himself and took on form of a humble baby. Not to a rich family, not to an influential family, not to the best, even the pedigree of family. He could trace his line to David, but so could a ton of other people. At least a 12th of the people that were left, right? But here is Jesus Christ taking on the role of the underdog in order to win salvation for all people. To embrace that role as the humble, the servant, the one who comes not for himself but for others. This is the story of God again and again and again throughout history. What does our psalm say? It was reflected in the reading from Isaiah that Carl just read, but here in the psalm, the Lord opens the eyes of the blind, the underdog. The Lord lifts up those who are bowed down, the underdog. The Lord cares for the stranger, the underdog. The Lord sustains the orphan and the widow, the underdog. But even in the Magnificat, which we were just singing as the service started, the mighty will be brought low and the low will be brought high. This is how God works. God embraces the underdog. So who are we as the underdog? We are the new Israel as the church of God, the ones who bring the message of God to the world. And we do it in word and deed, in these blankets, in the money that's going to Nigeria. This is how we preach the good news. We're still underdogs. We're still fighting the powers of this world that would have us do something else. But we embrace our role as the underdog. We're not a multi-million-dollar corporation. We don't have the resources that could go in force and immediately change lives. What we do is we go in with the nugget of the truth. And we plant that seed. And it grows in the fertile hearts of the people who hear the good news. And it grows and grows in that good soil. We're still the underdog. We can only do as much as our budget says, but our budget is only half of the picture. Because it's you, as the ministers of God, who go out into the world and do the good that only you can do in your life. So embrace the role of the underdog. But know that you've got an ace in your corner. You've got the best trainer that ever could be, the Holy Spirit. God who is guiding you forward and leading you on to do good things in this world. For a God who surely loves us. Amen.